Okay, guys, welcome back. Wow. Piers Morgan unleashed. I have not seen him like this, maybe ever. I mean, absolutely destroying an Israeli lawyer. He went absolutely after her. And as I'm sure many of you guys know by now, Piers Morgan has recently completely changed his stance on Israel and the war in the Gaza Strip, completely turning on the Israelis and basically conceding to Mehdi Hassan. You are kind of right about your entire position on this. I'm done resisting your opinion. I'm totally in agreement with you. And this interview in particular, again, he had an interview with the UK ambassador or the Israeli ambassador to the UK where he grilled her. But even there, it was still pretty respectful. I mean, he was grilling her, but it wasn't super intense that we've seen with him do with many pro-Palestinian guests. But that has completely changed. We had an Israeli lawyer who, I mean, some of the propaganda that was coming out of her mouth, it was honestly hard to even believe. It was completely insane. And Piers Morgan was having absolutely none of it. And some of the reasoning she was giving, I mean, it was completely insane. Okay. And first of all, just to give you guys an idea, before I'm going to show you the clips of this from this episode, just to give you an idea of who this person is. Basically, Piers Morgan's like, listen, every single lawyer, almost every single international organization, even the United States, has said that the settlements in the West Bank are completely illegal. What do you think about that? And she began to justify them, and Piers Morgan was having absolutely none of it. So she thinks these settlements in the West Bank are actually legal. And the person we're talking about. So completely wild stuff here. But we're going to get into the first clip here. This is going to be the clip where basically Piers Morgan's like, wait a second. You guys have been killing a ton of children, and he's accused of basically saying a blood libel by this Israeli lawyer, which is pretty wild to see. And Piers Morgan's having none of it. And we're going to get into it. We're going to show you the clip. We'll talk about it after. And guys, by the way, make sure to like and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. It's super good for the algorithm. Drop a comment as well and hit the like button. Patreon and Amazon links are down below if you want to support the channel out that way. So check that out. Here's the first clip, and we'll talk about it after.
For me to suggest that Israel had killed children in this war.
No, I don't believe that was the case. I think it was to do with targeting children.
No.
And there is a difference.
Right.
Because we are hearing that Israel is targeting children, and that couldn't be further from
Well,
the fact,
last week, 9 out of 10 children in one home where 2 doctors reside were killed in an airstrike.
Well,
what was that?
Remarkable.
Well, what was that?
That has been based only on the basis of hearsay.
You don't believe that story?
Information. I want these stories.
Wait a minute. You don't believe that those children were killed?
I have seen conflicting accounts, and I want that story to be properly investigated before the international media runs with it.
You think those 2 parents, one of whom I think operated on one of the children?
I have a question.
You think that those 2 doctors, the parents, they just made it up?
Why are
that
those
9 of their
children
10 children had been blown to pieces by an Israeli airstrike?
If this is true...
You don't believe it?
Well, why on earth was artificially generated imagery used to promote this story when it first happened?
I've got to say, Natasha, I think what you've just said about that family is despicable.
We've seen time
I'm sorry, it's despicable.
Blood libel?
Somebody, you talk about blood libel, like Dave said, you talk about blood libel, you talk about lies,
All I said
you talk about promoting propaganda, and here you sit here as a lawyer and you say that you do not believe those 9 children were killed.
I didn't say that. You're putting words in my mouth.
Do you believe it or not?
I said that there were conflicting accounts.
Do you believe it?
And it needs to be investigated.
Do you believe it?
I thought you would be the
parents said 9 of their 10 children were killed. Do you believe them or not? Or did those 2 doctors make it up?
They haven't said that directly as far as I have seen. I have seen second-hand accounts and hearsay. But it's important to ask, why are these civilians still there? Why is it that
Actually, no, it's important to ask whether you believe that family have lost 9 of their 10 children.
I want to know why the international community...
Do you? You don't. And this goes to the point that I would say about Israel generally now, in this war now. Israel says they don't believe anything. Every story that comes out about the deaths of civilians in Gaza,
because there is
someone will pop up representing the Israeli government saying, it's propaganda, it's not true, I've heard it's not right.
Okay, I mean, that's absolutely stunning. This has been a widely reported story that a family was killed in the Gaza Strip. 9 children were killed in an Israeli airstrike, and the parents were doctors, and they were operating on said children. And basically, this Israeli lawyer, as far as I'm aware, there really wasn't denied. I mean, it's been reported by reputable news organizations like Reuters, I believe, Gray Zone, Dropside News. It's been totally reported and confirmed. This Israeli lawyer is basically denying that it even happened, which is pretty insane. And again, it's ironic, too, because this is the same person who is accusing Piers Morgan of spreading propaganda and spreading lies. Meanwhile, she's doing the exact same thing on her accord. So, again, it's just completely upside down. And Piers Morgan again, to his credit, is not having it, saying it's despicable. I mean, you're denying the deaths of these children and its entire family. I mean, it's beyond insane. It's beyond insane. It really is. And it even gets crazier. Piers Morgan gets even angrier throughout this entire interview because, again, it keeps coming up. And Piers, one thing he's been consistent at with throughout this conflict, he's been talking about how Israel is not allowed in journalists. Why haven't they allowed in journalists? What do you think their reason is, guys? Maybe because they don't want the Israeli government to see what they're doing. And again, many people on the Israeli side, like Douglas Murray, for example, said, I've been there. I've been there to the Gaza Strip. Yeah, but what they don't tell you is, guys, yeah, they've been to the Gaza Strip, but they're embedded with the IDF. They're embedded with the Israeli Defense Forces because maybe the Israeli Defense Forces don't want them to go rummaging on their own and see things that the Israeli government does not want them to see. And every other war zone, international journalists are allowed in, except in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli government does not allow it unless it's strict circumstances. And Piers Morgan is not buying a word this lady is saying, not a single word of it. And this is a wild clip, a lot of stuff to talk about here. Here's a clip and we'll talk about it after. Absolutely wild. Piers Morgan demolishes this Israeli lawyer. Here's a clip and we'll talk about it after.
Journalists from outside can go in
for 3 reasons
and make that assessment themselves.
Yes.
What right does Israel have to do that?
For 3 reasons. Will you allow me to finish?
Well, there are no reasons.
It's
none of your business whether the journalists view their safety as being at risk.
I'm sorry, you haven't heard the reasons yet. The first, of course, is the safety of the journalists, and I appreciate you don't accept that. The second,
I think it's a load of nonsense.
The second is the safety.
The idea you're doing is some quaint concern for the safety of journalists is bullshit.
That was reason number one. Reason number two is the ability.
These better get better.
Is the ability of IDF soldiers to be able to conduct this war against Hamas without.
Without the journalists getting in the way.
No, without.
They've actually, by the way, they've killed more journalists in Palestinian journalists than in any war
Hamas
in
members
modern
wearing
history.
press vests are not journalists. And reason number three.
So none of them are journalists.
And reason number three.
So just to be clear, none of the Palestinian journalists who've been killed are actually journalists.
I said Hamas members.
Oh, they're all Hamas members.
Those that are. And
every single dead Palestinian journalist is a member of Hamas. Is that your position?
No, listen, I appreciate Piers.
That is also bullshit.
But misrepresenting.
I'm not going to let you bullshit.
Misrepresenting every.
So that's 2 out of 2. What's the third reason?
Our mutual friend Douglas Murray was embedded with the IDF in Lebanon.
You said the words yourself. I love Douglas, but he was embedded with the IDF.
Right.
He's unbelievably pro-Israel.
Let me finish.
So of course he was going to write what he witnessed while embedded with the IDF.
No, let me finish what his experiences there were. The difference is that in
you have to tell me.
There is something I think that you won't have heard. The IDF are able to allow journalists into Lebanon. He wasn't the only one. There were many other international journalists with him.
There have been a tiny...
Those other international journalists with him were very clear.
There have been a tiny handful of journalists led in by the IDF in tightly controlled environments to witness what the IDF were prepared to let them see.
And you know what those journalists
actually, what it needs this war to stop the bullshit, which is out of control, by the way, in this last 3 minutes, is to let international journalists go in and do their jobs. And they will worry with their networks or organizations about their safety, but they should be allowed to do their jobs. And there's only one reason why the Israeli government doesn't want international journalists crawling all over Gaza. It's because they do not want them reporting what they will find. Which, by the way, will include the bodies of thousands of children who you, on the Israeli side, are not counting as you count the terrorists you kill, but who journalists would.
Reason number 3 is that those journalists that were in Lebanon said that they had to be very careful about what they reported because of what Hezbollah would do to their colleagues in Beirut. The fact that international journalists have sunk to this level, that they would allow their reportage to be controlled by terrorist organizations, Iranian proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah included, is despicable. That is the real issue here that has driven the international...
Actually, it's not. The real issue is...
It is. This is terrorist organisations' propaganda.
Actually, it's not. Let me bring David.
And the fact that you will not all me to answer a single question.
You know what? You've made all your points, and they all, I'm afraid, Natasha,
I certainly
turned out to be
made
bullshit.
All my points.
Again, I think that's absolutely stunning. And Piers Morgan, again, was having absolutely none of it. First of all, the first reason she offers, talking about the safety of journalists. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. Clearly, the civilian casualty ratio, I mean, obviously, clearly the Israeli government that's not the first thing on their mind is the safety of civilians and journalists. Okay, clearly not. Because again, Piers Morgan brings up in that interview, in that same clip I just showed you, the amount of Palestinian journalists who were killed. And she even says, she accuses every single Palestinian journalist, that's the implication she's making, of being in Hamas, which without providing any evidence, which is totally insane. And again, that's not to say that some of these members didn't have ties to Hamas, but the idea that you're going to say that they're not journalists, they're all in Hamas, so they don't even matter. Completely insane. And Piers Morgan, again, says that's pretty despicable to say something like that. Justifying the murder of these journalists or the killing of these journalists is completely insane. But again, they did it for the safety of the journalists. Nobody believes that. That's completely ridiculous. And again, to conduct operations without the without journalists. Yeah, well, why would it be easier? Because they don't want them to see what they're doing and more documentation. Clearly, that's the reason. Clearly, that's the reason. And Piers Morgan knows this, and that's why he says it very well. And it's honestly insane the amount of propaganda that's coming out of her mouth, trying to articulate the point that, hey, the Israeli government is basically banning journalists because, yeah, we don't want them to get hurt. What a load of crap. What a load of crap. And Piers Morgan thought this entire interview is having none of it. But I mean, I think even the fact that she's justifying the settlement in the West Bank, saying it's completely legal, it's insane. And her moral grandstanding too is so ridiculous. I mean, she's grandstanding? How it's despicable that you're succumbing to Hamas propaganda because they're buying reported and verified stories of families being killed in the Gaza Strip, and he's reporting on it. And that's Piers Morgan basically spreading Hamas propaganda. It's not true. It's just not true. And Piers Morgan did a great job in this interview in exposing it. And I think most people who watch an interview come away saying, Piers Morgan destroyed her. I don't know how you could have any other takeaway from that. I really don't. I thought she completely humiliated herself. I really do. And some of the justifications she was using, a lot of these points, people are just not buying it. People are not buying it anymore. And clearly there's no end game for the Israeli government in this conflict other than taking over the entirety of the Gaza Strip. Just listen to what the finance minister Smotrich has been saying. This guy's the minister of finance. It's a very high up position. And he's saying, our goal is to take over the entirety of the Gaza Strip. It's completely insane. And she's basically saying no one's starving in the Gaza Strip. Then why are there people dying of starvation? Insane. Completely insane. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments, guys. Again, make sure to like and subscribe. It's super good for the algorithm. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you later.